ჩვენი გადაცემის სტუმარი გახლავთ გოლდა მეიერის შვილიშვილი ბატონი გიდი მეიერი, მე მას მივესალმები. დიდი მადლობა მინდა მას უთხრა იმისთვის, რომ დაგვითმოთ დრო და დაგვთანხმდა ინტერვიუზე. გამარჯობა.
Good evening, and it's a privilege and an honor to be here on Georgian TV. Thank you.
Თქვენ დღეს მოინახულეთ საქართველოს ეს ერთ-ერთი ულამაზესი კუთხე, კონკრეტულად ალავერდი და თქვენი ჩამოსვლის მიზეზი სწორედ ამ კუთხეს უკავშირდება და ადამიანს, რომლის მონახულებაც გსურდათ. მე მინდა ისაუბროთ ამ მიზეზებზე და ქართულ მაყურებლებს აუხსნათ თქვენ კონკრეტულად რა მიზნით და მიზეზით და ვის გასაცნობად ჩამოხვედით საქართველოში.
The general reason to come to Georgia is to be a part of the relationships between the Israeli people and the Georgian people. And there are two states which are both very ancient in culture and very modern in statehood. And at the same time, we have a connection that goes back thousands of years between the Jewish people in Georgia and the Georgians, and between Israel and Georgia. So I'm very privileged to take part of it. It's through the hospices of Beit Israel, with the Israeli House, which does work to connect Israel and Georgia, and Mr. Itzik Moshe, who does incredible work to bring our two peoples together without politics and without agendas, but just a real love of the Georgian people and the Israeli people. And so about a year ago, the Reverend Bishop David Abba, I was sent a clip of his speech, quoting my grandmother Golda Meir about how to build a good state and how to have the right values of statehood. And I was very moved by Abba's use of Golda's words, and I immediately responded. And it took maybe 30 minutes, conveyed through the Reverend Abba himself, that he's waiting to meet me at the monastery in Georgia. So I'm grateful for this outreach of this great man, the Reverend Abba, to make this connection, and I'm overjoyed to have come here to Georgia to meet with the Georgian people and specifically to meet with Abba. I'm very grateful for the hospitality and the generosity that I was showed.
მე უფეს ჩვენ ვესაუბრეთ, თქვენი შეხვედრა უკვე იყო, ალავერში თქვენ მას შეხვდით და მან თქვა, რომ მისთვისაც ძალიან ამაღელვებელი იყო ეს შეხვედრა და ის ხშირად თავის ქადაგებებში, თავის გამოსვლებში სტუდენტებთან ძალიან ხშირად იყენებს ხოლმე თქვენი დიდი ბებიის გარკვეულ გამონათქვამებს. გოლდა მეიერი არის ძალიან ცნობილი, მსოფლიოში ცნობილი პოლიტიკოსი ქალი, რომლის გამონათქვამებსაც ალბათ ბევრ ქვეყანაში ბევრი ადამიანი იყენებს. რატომ იყო ეს თქვენთვის განსაკუთრებულად მნიშვნელოვანი, ან ემოციური, რაზეც ახლა თქვენ ბრძანებდით, რომ საქართველოში მეუფე აბას სიტყვებმა რაღაცნაირად თქვენ სულს შეეხო და გადაწყვიტეთ ჩამოსულიყავით საქართველოში?
So, excellent question. In different places, when I go and hear what people say about Golda and when I'm asked to talk about Golda, in different places there is a different attitude. And for instance, when I speak in the United States, I was just in Denver this summer at the Golda Meir House Museum, a symposium to speak about her. There's a great love of Golda, but a lot of it is nostalgic, and it's sentimental, nostalgic, and pertains mainly to the Jewish community. And I was moved by Abba's words and use of Golda's words because it's relevant to today's emerging, re-emerging of freedom in Georgia and how to build a just state with the right values. And that moves me so much that Golda's words are relevant today outside of Israel and outside of just the Jewish people, but that um, the message is universal and can be used by different countries to help themselves develop and create high values of statehood. Golda's story is of a Jewish girl that was born in Kyiv and grew up in Pinsk and had to emigrate to America when she was 8 years old because life for Jews at that time in the Russian Empire was impossible. The possibilities were non-existent. The perils and dangers were every day. Her first strong memory was of the fear of a pogrom happening in Pinsk, and her father, the pogrom never happened. That pogrom didn't happen, but her father had to shut the windows and doors of the house with pieces of wood to try and protect the family. And Golda, who was a very bright child, what stayed with her was the anguish that her father had, that all he could do to protect his family was to board the windows. And that stayed with her and in time made her be a part of the creation in her own hands, not her alone, but she took a great part in the creation of the state of Israel for Jews, to have a safe state. And to think that about 120 years later, in the post-Soviet world, in the countries that were ruled by Russia, and in Russia itself, Golda is not anymore the child that didn't have any rights, any privileges, but she's a woman, a Jewish woman leader that is revered, and they learn from her. And I think that what is happening now in Eastern Europe and also in Ukraine, and where she's a symbol that gives the people of Ukraine now a lot of strength. I feel very proud about this. And that in Georgia, in the beautiful country of Georgia, they take to their heart Golda Meir, I think is really wonderful. It's something that some years ago we couldn't even dream of it. And here when I'm in Georgia and I ask people, when did they hear about Golda? And they say, oh, it's been a long time. But during Soviet time, we couldn't speak about her. Now it's open, and I think this is really marvelous, and I'm so proud to come here and to share in this love.
თუმცა გოლდა მეიერი საქართველოში ცნობილია, მას იცნობენ და მისი ცნობილი ფრაზები და გამონათქვამები, რომელიც ეხება სახელმწიფოს მშენებლობას, აღშენებლობას, ის გზა, რაც ისრაელმა გაიარა, დღესაც ძალიან აქტუალურია. როგორ ფიქრობთ, რატომ ეხმიანება თქვენი ბებიის, ეს სახელოვანი ბებიის ეს გამონათქვამები თანამედროვეობას?
I think that Golda Meir was very wise and very forward-looking, and at the same time had the gift of speaking straight from her heart and in a very simple way, so she could convey complex ideas in a few words that we can all understand, and they stand the test of time. With time, I have my memories of Golda, but I was 16 when she passed away, when she died. But with the passage of years, I read more and I research archival material, and I can connect what I understood as a very young person from memory with what I understand now as an adult, and in looking at historical material. Golda was incredible, where when she talked about political things, like in the 50s and the 60s, we read it now and it's as if she was a prophetess. She knew what would be. And because she formulated her ideas in such a simple and concise way, I'm not a politician, I haven't studied political science, but I can understand it, and I think everyone can understand. And it goes, understanding what she says goes beyond different levels of education, but it goes beyond geography. So the people in America can understand her, the people in Georgia can understand her. I know that in Iraq, her books are being read and very popular everywhere. And I think it's a great gift that she gave humanity of simplifying her visions. What she talked about was a just and equal society where there is no prejudice, not anti-Semitism, not Islamophobia, not homophobia, not gender. What's the word? Discrimination. Yes. It was that everybody's equal. Men and women are equal. People of different ethnicities are equal, and a society that works for the betterment of everybody's lives. And I think that's a very simple vision, which we can all personally take to ourselves, and we can ask on different days, today, in 2 years, in 10 years, do we have an equal society? Is there enough is there equality everywhere? Are we doing things for the betterment of everybody? Are we giving equal chances for education and work? And I think she codified it in such a simple way that we can all take it, and we don't have to think, we don't have to be academics to see if we ourselves or the communities we live in live according to Golda's vision or not. It's something that we can very simply say, oh, would Golda like this? Would Golda not like this? Or my friend, he says, when there's a problem, he says, what would Golda do? So I love this question, what would Golda do? And usually it's solving the problem. If you look historically at what she did, was just very straight thinking of how to solve the problem with little things or large things, but just going step by step. And I think that we can say today that it's a model of women in leadership, because women have to live multiple lives, some of being a woman in the family, being a mother, working, striving for freedom. In some countries it's easier, in some countries it's more difficult. And women naturally multitask. They have to solve problems. They have to go to work, but they also have to take care of the sick child at home and think what they're going to do later. And I think this kind of wisdom that women have naturally is really something that can give so much for leadership. And I think in Golda's, in her life and in the model that she showed, it shows that. And I think that today we can look at it and say, she was so wise, so simple and so wise at the same time.
გოლდას შვილიშვილობა. ეს გარკვეულ პასუხისმგებლობას გაკისრებთ, გასაგებია რომ ხართ მუსიკოსი, თქვენს ქვეყანაში პოპულარული ხართ. არის კიდევ რაღაც, რაც ამის უკან იმალება?
I don't see as if I have a role as Golda's grandson, but when I'm asked or invited to talk about her, I feel a great privilege, but also an obligation to talk about her, to show some of her personal side that maybe others wouldn't know from reading biographies or watching films, and to bring closer, if I can bring her personality closer, like when I come to Georgia, if I can have people think a little bit more about her or know something more about her, then I'm overjoyed, not because I feel personally very proud, but it's not about myself or my family, it's about her vision and what she really gave to the world. And I think that it was a gift that wasn't just relevant to the Jewish people and the state of Israel. I think that now, about 120, a little more than 120 years after her birth, we see that it's becoming more and more a international vision, a universal vision. And I think that's important. It's not a matter of giving her the honor. I think she deserves the honor. But the idea is not honoring her, but having her words honor the people that need her vision. And that's why it's so heartwarming and important for me for this connection with Georgia and how important she is to the leaders here and to the people of Georgia.
ეს არის ქაშერი ღვინო, რომელიც დაამზადა ბადაგონმა. თუ გაგისინჯავთ და როგორია ეს თქვენთვის ეს შთაბეჭდილება და გემოები?
The Badagoni kosher wine is an excellent wine. I've had the privilege to visit Badagoni today and try different wines, the kosher and also the not kosher wines. Georgian wines are beautiful. The wine culture, since it's such an ancient culture, and the Georgian people and the Georgian countryside gave the world the culture of wine. And it's a privilege to be here. And I think that to have kosher wine that comes from Georgia is really beautiful. And this is a wonderful wine. It's very rich in flavor. When I taste it, and now that I've seen a little bit of Georgia, I've been here to Kakheti for a very magical and beautiful day, I can say this has the taste of Georgia. And the fact that it's kosher makes it possible for Jews all over the world. Some Jews drink only kosher. Some Jews, I drink all wines, not only kosher. But having kosher wine makes it possible for Jews all over the world to experience and enjoy this specific wine. And I think we drink wine on Friday nights to celebrate the Sabbath. It's important to drink wine. And we drink wine in all our holidays as part of the tradition. So I think to have Jews all over the world to be able to have this wonderful Georgian wine that has also a part in the recent history of Georgia and Israel, and wine coming from the most ancient region of winemaking in the world, I think is a wonderful gift. And I think this wine will be wonderfully celebrated in all holidays.
გარდა ღვინისა, ქართველებს გვაქვს უნიკალური პოლიფონია, მუსიკა. გსმენიათ თუ არა ქართული პოლიფონიის ან ხალხური მუსიკის შესახებ?
I know a little about the Georgian music. I've heard a little of the ancient polyphony and what we heard in recording in the monastery today. It's very beautiful, and I would like to experience more. I hope that in my next visits to Georgia, I would like to go to the churches and hear it live. It's something that I really want to experience. I've heard a little of contemporary Georgian music. I've listened to Concelli, and it's beautiful. And after listening, a friend of mine who's a Georgian who emigrated to a Georgian Jew who emigrated it, and she's a pianist, grew up in Israel, and we talked before coming here. She said, "You have to listen to Concelli," and I listened to a few hours of Concelli's piano music, and afterwards I told her, "I understand." I said, "Okay, the style, it's similar to jazz. It could be French jazz, American jazz of the 30s. And so, but when you listen to, I, as a non-Georgian, but I have Georgian friends in Israel, Jews who emigrated from Georgia. I know a little bit of the music of the language, of the beautiful Georgian language. And when I listen to Concelli after an hour and a half, I say, this is not French. I can hear the language. I can hear the Georgian language inside the music. And it's magic, and it's beautiful. So I'd like to know more about the music. I'd love in the future to perform in Georgia. I would love very much to cooperate with Georgian musicians, maybe to play two pianos together or to work with singers. And we also, in Israel, we have Yosef Bardanashvili, who was a minister here and emigrated to Israel and is a fantastic modern contemporary composer. And I've heard a lot of pieces that he composed, and it's really marvelous. And I've heard Georgian musicians like Khatya Bunyatashvili,
yes,
which I go to her concert. You know, I love her playing. I would love to meet her one day and maybe play together. So I know that the Georgian music is both the original music of Georgia and the classical traditions, is at the highest level. And so it's very exciting for me to be here. Unfortunately, this week, it's very short visit, but there are no concerts in Tbilisi, so I don't get to go to concerts, but I would like so much to hear more music here and be a part of it. Sunday at the conference of Israeli House of Bet Israel, I will talk a little about Golda, and I will play two little pieces to honor her and to make the connection for people to think about her with the music that she loved. And I hope it's only going to be a start to come to Georgia and perform more. This is my dream. This is my heart wish.
საინტერესო გოლდას მუსიკალურ გემოვნება, როდესაც ახსენეთ, როგორი იყო? მე ვიცი, რომ პირველი ინსტრუმენტი სწორედ ბებიამ გაჩუქათ.
Yes, she gave me my first harpsichord. I'm a harpsichordist. I play the organ and I also play the piano. When I talk about her, I like to play music by Felix Mendelssohn. And he was one of her favorite composers. He was of Jewish origin, And the connection, it's funny to say, my personal connection with Mendelssohn is that he was the grandson of the greatest Jewish man of his time, of Moses Mendelssohn, the philosopher. And I'm the grandson of perhaps the greatest Jewish woman of our times. So I think it's kind of fun, if I talk about my grandmother, I'll play Mendelssohn. And Golda loved chamber music. She loved the more intimate music making. And she was very much in support of musical education. My father was also a musician. He was a cellist and director of the Israel Conservatory. And she also donated, when she received the Israel Prize for her life work, she donated the money for scholarships for music education. And she helped a lot with music education. She really believed in it. And music and music education is not just music. It's to connect people through our hearts and our souls. And when we all listen to music, we're all one. There's no division between people when we enjoy music. And when we see and hear people playing chamber music, it gives us a model of human relationships, human conversation, the caring between humans. And I think that was part of what she loved so much about.
დიდი მადლობა მინდა გითხრათ იმისთვის, რომ ნამდვილად გამონახეთ დრო დღეს ეწვიეთ კახეთს, არაერთი ადგილი მოინახულეთ, შეხვდით მიტროპოლიტ აბა ალავერდელს და ეს ძალიან საინტერესო შეხვედრა იყო, მე ამ შეხვედრას ვესწრებოდი. ჩვენ ახლა ვიმყოფებით შუამთის კარიბჭეში, შუამთაში, რომელსაც ასევე ძალიან დიდი მადლობა მინდა უთხრა მასპინძლობისთვის, ეს არის არაჩვეულებრივი გარემო და მადლობა კიდევ ერთხელ მობრძანებისთვის და იმისთვის, რომ დრო გამონახეთ და დაგვითმეთ.
Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the time, and I thank everybody involved with this trip, Israeli House, Mr. Itzik Moshe, the Reverend Abba, who invited me to come and visit with him in Kakheti, and it's a great honor. And thank you to the television station for taking time and coming to spend the day with me in Kakheti. And this is wonderful, and I feel that furthering the relations between Georgia and Israel is a wonderful thing, and I'd love to come here again and to continue to contribute to these ties between our wonderful nations.
მე ვიმედოვნებ, რომ თბილისში დაბრუნდებით თქვენი კონცერტებით.
I would love so much.